That's a lot better, huh? Hey, well, salam alaikum, walaikum assalam, greetings in return, shalom, shalom, ni hao. As we say in my great ancestors' language, guten Tag, man wunschöner Clan. That means, good day, my beautiful clan. Oh, y'all thought it was a joke. Well, want me to say it in Spanish? Anyway, how are y'all doing today? I'm so grateful to have y'all here. Guten Tag. All right. Good day. Mine, me. Wunderschöner, beautiful, wonderful Clan. All right. Remember that. Guten Tag. Mein wunderschöner Clan. All right. So, anyway. So how do y'all feel about what's going on in the world today? I know it's not a grand feeling, but it is pertinent that you feel good no matter what. I tell you, there's no hell, at least not as it's been laid out, the way the church for fear mongering. No, if that was the case, you think you'd have pedophiles doing it, some of the most insidious things you can even imagine to children, and homosexuals doing the most depravity, talking about a God and one world order and this, that, and other, and then willing to bow down to bow and fold to a one world religion. Everything has a in layman's term has a plan to it. Now, natural order, its plan is for everything to go accordingly. The plan outside of that is destructive. It is chaos, order out of chaos, which is not order at all. It's a perversion of even the word order and its origins. Any of y'all ever look up the word order to see what it actually means? Why am I speaking on this morning? I'm going to read a little bit. Okay. Circa 1200 ordren. Give order to arrange in a row or rank. From order, noun, sense of set or keep in order is from circ 1500, meaning to give commands. For or to instruct authoritatively is from 1540s, that of command to be made, done, or issued. See the perversion? out of natural order. Now you would have to go over and look up natural order, right? Now I actually have it. I just don't want to go back to it. So I'm actually typing it in because it pops right up. The orderly system comprising the physical universe and functioning according to natural as it distinguished from human or supernatural laws. Something that is beyond the scope of explanation. Because it is the truth of order. So do you get where I'm coming from? Why am I saying this? Well, how many of you know about the CEI, Corporate Equality Index? As the national benchmarking tool measuring policies, practices, and benefits pertinent to lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, and queer employees. It's a measurement. Why am I saying this? Well, we saw what happened with the Bud Light. We saw what happened with recently here with the Adidas, the Negroid wearing the little swimsuit, and a number of other things with Nike and so on, a plethora of things. Now you see Budweiser having the nerve, the audacity to want to put on camouflage. It's talking about veterans. How dare they? And we know this is Ashkenaz, not Tavito, but the reality. Okay? And it's a disease. Why am I saying this? Well, if you understand the CEI, the Corporate Equality Index, then you can realize that which is backed by HRC, which is it's the Human Rights Campaign. And who is behind that? Well, if you look at the Open Societies Foundation, it's George Soros. But who is behind him? Well, we know that the black box plays a part in the culmination of media, hence Adidas, Nike, Bud Light, and all these other ones are starting catering to it, which is the woke movement. It has nothing to do with being awake. It is the perversion created by the military industrial complex. Who was behind that? Well, you go back to the great Pope already moved this papal edict. So why are these people still performing when the dollar, they made it worthless based on Nixon, that worthless Ashkenaz with his big nose and everything. But what people don't want to respect is the fact that we talked about not just the black Pope, but the gray Pope. Oh, and his true benediction. And what's above that? If you think there is no perversion, that most of these people running around who are blind, dumb Luciferians, there is something deeper in the dispose of things. Why am I saying this? Because we have a lot of people caught up in this stuff, and it's pretty disturbing, to say the least. That people are easily swayed. You done watched all these musicians and everybody come and go and push the narrative and the agenda, and then you watch the people who are frugal in its disposition. It's like, it's my way or no way. That is never what it was about. It should have never been about that. We have allowed it in our slumber and our laziness. We have allowed it to happen. There is a real world, and the majority of people don't exist in it. And I know some of you might defer and question, well, who are the ones who are playing a part? Well, look, if I came along and I had an offer, and I see the youth in you, and I see the confusion when you're not knowing that I created it, and I say, are you willing to do this for this? Guaranteed safety, that you'll be okay, and some of your family. And as long as you hear that you'll be okay, and I show you I give you a glimpse of something, would you not partake in it? And I'm not talking about the sick individuals who are selected because of their low IQ and everything else, because they just barely made it, like on the police force and this, that, and other. Those individuals who perform those duties, they'll line them up and get rid of them. Once they have no need for them no more, they will line every one of them up, and they will execute every last one of them. This is proverbial in the world we live in. It's throughout history. The problem is because they don't put it in a movie or it's in books, but you don't know what book to look for. These individuals don't know that. They lack all responsibility. So all these individuals out here are causing harm on so-called the civilian populace in a costume. The same people who would otherwise, if not in a costume, might go through the same thing. How do people embrace and become part of that? Because they have no power. The majority of you have absolutely no power because you will not tap into the truth of who you are. Now, we always say all good things must come to an end. You know why that term come means something? Because no matter how many times you may have come back, we're on a road to where it stops. There is no return. They believe that, oh, everybody's going to come back. We're going to have the babies. We're going to do this, that, and the other. Are we going to create? And that's the reason why they want to go back into something that was done long ago. They want to bind man and machine. It didn't work before numerous times. It is not going to work this time. It doesn't matter how great the technology. It doesn't matter what's outside there. It's not meant to, because it has no order. Now, if I'm autistic or I suffer from Asperger's syndrome in a very minute way, or autistic or Down syndrome in a very minute way, there's certain parts of the hemispheres of my brain that work at a heightened level. You remember the young man who worked on Sonic to see, who passed away in 2009 of cancer in California. I thought it was North Carolina. That cancer could have been healed. Remember, he suffered it at 3 years old, and they kept it at the post, and it caught up to him, and he succumbed to it. The only person to ever actually do that, to be able to see things based on sounds. What do they call it? Like a bat, you know what I mean? And we all have that ability. It's just that we're not nurtured. We have not been disposed to be able to bring it to fruition. I walk around literally outside by my car into the garbage, closing my eyes, remembering steps, and then doing my best to forget the steps and to feel the things around me. So when I'm walking, there were times in the beginning I would crack my eye just to get a glimpse and walk, and I would allow myself, like if I got beside the truck or another vehicle, to feel that energy, like something different. It felt solid. So I didn't know how far I was from it, but there were times when I walked right by my truck, right before I brushed it, I felt my hair stand up because I was tuning into it. Like when I got around to the side of the truck, knowledge tells me there's a tree there that I like to lean against, or sometimes whisper to ground myself. The proton whole narrative. And I would do my best to walk in between it, knowing that I could hit something, to see if I feel it like a piece of wind. And I do it all the time. And what's happening is it's increasing. I'm starting to walk with my eyes closed, knowing I'm about to hit a corner, attempting to sense it without sound or anything, to allow myself to feel outside of myself. What am I doing? I am training. I am teaching myself something. It's a long walk. I'm allowing myself to be uncomfortable, to not become comfortable, but to adapt and learn something else. All right? These things, because they are so chaotic, because of the names behind them, the image, the face, is a distraction from you allowing yourself to acquiesce, to raise to a higher standard, a higher existence, to reconnect. These things subjugate you or subject you to things outside the paradigm of truth and norm, so that way you stay connected to the lie, the manifestation of it, of itself. No matter how it was brought forth. We have heard many stories of queens and kings and princes and pulpits and all these individuals who have done sadistic things, whether true or not. What was the name of the woman who had the castle, and she would take her servants and she would slaughter them and bathe in their blood to stay youthful? What about the king who would subjugate his enemies and he would eat their livers? These are based on real-time affairs. Why? To take their energy, to be able to live a little longer. They never do. Well, they may have come back and maybe caught and brought back to continue on. And that doesn't matter. The perversion, the further you go into perversion, the deeper you are involved in it, the more perverse you are. But when that seems to be taking leeway, right? There has to be some way to be able to hide it. And hence you have all these platforms to keep people in delusion, to chemically lobotomize them, to keep them from ever acquiescing or becoming what they're supposed to become, so that you can keep ruling over them, which that was never meant to be. And they make themselves believe it's their ordained. How does a fictional character, individuals, make themselves believe in something? Well, if they're that perverse, that's what you get. That's what you have. And you have all these young ones who have been subjugated, and they believe in something they have no idea what they're doing. Again, like I said, most of these individuals, you see what they did to the military. You had all these individuals out here in uniform doing very perverse things. They needed those who would commit themselves to it blindly because they believe it's natural. They believe that it's a right feeling. First of all, if the federal courts, the Supreme Court sits there and says, oh, there's no real law or anything that they're supposed to serve and protect you. But that means it's then somebody was lying. So every time God puts on a costume and he takes this little oath and they sit there like little minions and repeat it. And then they go out there and they get to see the ugly of the world created by the very thing that creates them. Do you get where I'm coming from? And then we have people who are still bent on politics and ignoring the fact that it's fraudulent, that it is not real. It is not a real thing. And then religions. Now, I always say, if you're going to be in a religion, practice it to its fullest. You may be able to arise to another position, but the majority, 99.99% of people don't become fluid in studying the religions to learn. I mean, if it says there in Matthew and prior to that in the Old Testament that for ye are gods, and you don't take heed to that and start carrying yourself as one, but allow yourself to be the perversion, what does that say? And then there are those who was never meant for. It was meant for the Hebrew people, the true people. That means autochthonous of all lands, spread to the four corners of this earth, to which been sacked upon. That's why you see the Trojan horse in Troy. You know who the Trojan horse is, right? In this generation. Megan Thee Stallion. And who is Troy? Isaiah, what is her name? Lori, Isaiah, whatever. Well, no, go and Google this stuff and put it together. Everything has been done. Every time you see the black and white board, we say, oh, checkers. No, it's a chessboard, people. Look at the difference of them, the checker and the chessboard. They're playing chess. I am telling you, you're not supposed to be sitting at that park bench with that timer playing their game. You don't even know how to play their game. So how can you beat them within a timely fashion when they're slow tapping the bell, slow making their moves? Very, very much a perversion. So again, they want to bind machine and man. I'm just using man, it means woman or whatever. And they literally want to do away with woman. They want to incubate some things using the egg. They want woman to be for their pleasure, and they want a perversion of a woman. They don't want the real woman. Do they need the man? No, they want to utilize the seed from the best. I don't think people are getting what's really going on and how sick it is. I asked y'all to watch Maiden's Tale, Handmaid's Tale. What's the name of it again? Handmaid's. I watched it. I watched the whole thing twice, actually. I have the book. Okay, it's a novel. The novel, The Maidens. I'm trying to pull up The Maiden's Tale. By Margaret Fraser. I want to make sure it's the right one. I want to make sure it's the right one. Well, the movie is Handmaid's Tale. Okay, the TV show that I watched. You can order it if you want. Seasons 1 and 2, and but the actual movie what was the actual book? The Maiden's Tale, Margaret Fraser. There's a reality to it. And then there's a perversion to make you believe in something to give you false sense of hope. And this stuff is real, y'all. This stuff is deep and sick. And why am I pushing in this direction? Because I'm still seeing people looking at all this nonsense as if it really means something. It means absolutely nothing. What it means is that they have control over you, and people have subjugated themselves to it by way of subjugation. Remember the movie They Live? Roddy Piper and the brother, you know, they put on the shades and they can see them. Now that's a real quaint and real like sweet way of putting it, with a little bit of scrapping and fighting. No, it's worse than that. You see what I'm saying? They live. That was letting you know they walk among us. I just find it very important that I just wanted to bring that up today. I wanted to give you something to look at, something to be able to go later on today without beating yourself up, and have this to say, you know what? This is crazy. So when you think about all the stuff that's going on, you'll see these commercials and stuff. You see the new Budweiser thing with the little green camouflage or whatever color it is with the veterans, like they respect the veterans. They have no respect for anything. After what Fauci and them have done, him being the front man, the face for it, to push this death, fake Biden, him falling again. This is all the biggest vaudeville show. He's not a president of anything other than the U.S., who is nothing but a puppet for them. And people are still giving false hope. I mean, look at watch it. Look at what they're doing with the ATF. These fraudulent individuals. And some of the individuals that work for them, how they weaponize the IRS. You're not paying attention to anything. You're still sitting there slacking, lazy, comfortable, as if it's all gonna blow over. It's all right. It's gonna, and that's what, and they created that delusional atmosphere, as if it's just going to stop, as if it's just going to end. It's not going to stop. It's not going to end. And for you and everybody else, it's going to get worse, because you are showing that you are lazy. The righteous have become the inferior, and the perversions have, I'm serious, the righteous have become the inferior, and the perversions have become the overwatch, the overseers. Make that make sense. And they have it to where if something happens, they'll reward the perversion and make the righteous who have fallen. How many times you see a police shootout and you're unaware that some of those police chasing this individual set upon them an innocent who actually knew more than what they were supposed to, and they went to get rid of them, but the media plays it out as the bad guy, and they tie a story to it, just like the fake Egypt story and the fake Moses and Bible story and everything else. I'm not saying things didn't happen. What I'm saying as far as history, and then they murder this individual because these individuals right here work with this secret. Let's say it's like a book. Oh, I'm still doing my screen right. Don't worry. Never be in a purgatory. Never subjugate yourself to something outside of who you are. And they get rid of this individual. And then they stand up there with these niggas or whoever, giving awards to them. They made it through there with the best, because they had to save face too. You know, shot in the head or on the neck. And, oh, they made it. They're standing up on stage and they're awarded these plaques. Well, they just murdered an innocent person, and they're spinning a story. And everybody buys into it. So the innocent have no voice, and the wicked are rewarded. Are you even getting what I'm saying? I'm just putting it out there. Doesn't mean all, but it does mean quite a few. Hold on, people. Hold on. People just be sitting there stuck on Instagram. Is no different from Facebook. It's just pathetic. People just be stuck on there all day. Just put it down. I have notifications. So if I see somebody, I'll go on like Snow, she'll post something and I'll go over there and see a Paul or certain individuals. And I'll go, hey, other than that, I don't care about that platform. I don't need it. I was there just to get some people to come along and take a walk and actually walk in their own footsteps for the first time. Some people use those platforms to get a bag and everything else. You look at these pranksters. You know how many of them have been killed or wounded or hurt? And actually have the nerves to believe that doing a prank is all right. Like they can walk up on somebody and do the dumb things they're doing. You walk up to my vehicle with a gas tank pouring water on it. I'm not going to sit there asking you what you're doing. I'm going to blow you. I'm going to put you down. Or I'm going to come up behind you because it might be somebody else standing by the truck and I'm going to lay you out. And I'm going to call the ambulance and I'm going to call 911. And I say, well, I thought this guy was about to burn my truck, so I had to do what I had to do. There is no prank. How about the little mulatto, Red, walks around in Walmart all the time, going up to people, turning them, putting ice cream in their face. You're going to get a beat down. I don't care about your little Spanish partner with you, whatever. You're going to get knocked, you're going to get lifted up, slammed on your neck. Homeboy, he's going to come over there thinking he's a bad boy, and he's going to get squared up on. He's going to get tap. You know what I'm saying? This is the reality. And as people, some of you who, y'all share some stupid stuff with me. Sometimes when I share stuff that's stupid, I want to see if you see how dumb it is. And I get to laugh and I laugh back. And I'm like, you're not really paying attention when I tell you that I'm studying. It's a test. And 80% of the time, everyone fails. So, again, do you want to be part of the perverse world? Or do you want to acclimate to? It's nothing wrong with doing certain things because I'm telling you, the heaven you created, the hell is a purgatory, a place that you subjugate yourself to that is outside of order. We're dealing with that now with them spraying the chemicals. You remember that girl, that woman, Iba, whatever her name, who talks about the chemtrails and what they're doing and how perverse it is. She passed away from cancer in 2012, I think it was. You know what I'm talking about? Anyway. And she was laying on the fact that the Air Force stated, and they did, and not that all the people are working it, by 2025, they want to be able to control the weather. I'm not talking about seeing clouds with rain and this, that, and all that. I'm talking about they literally want to be able to make a tornado happen here. They want to be able to make a mountain push up over here. They want to be able to make a wave come, a 1,000-foot wave come and crash on this. I am speaking what they really want to do. And the rest of you are still just sitting there in your little self-built concentration camps, as if all the wars outside of you didn't have a purpose. They were all tests, millions of lives lost, to return and focus back on the old world, where it all started, because they don't like that truth. These Ashkenaz, these individuals who aren't religious or anything, who subjugate them people to death, who run behind a false Zionist flag and a Star of David that's not even what it is. All right? These sons of perdition, the Gog and Magog, the relatives they use. And none of you want to pay attention to it. You don't want to see it for what it is. They control it all that nonsense. Right? I just wanted to come on and give that. Now I'm going to go ahead and get a little read in, and we're going to shut it down. We're going to read the Iron Republic, and then we'll be back because I got to make my breakfast. All right? I'm drinking that tea. I haven't had it in 2-3 days. Dandelion with cinnamon. And it's bitter today. And which I need. Okay? Here we go. The Iron Republic. Food for thought. Okay? That's all this was. I use the word perversions because to me, that's what it is. It's outside of the norm. What amazes me is all the people who parlay with it, who hold a false court with it, who act upon it as if it's a good thing. It's pretty disturbing, right? Iron Republic, edited by C.J. Austin. I didn't put a paper in there, guys. I just know that we're reading chapters. We're at chapter 3. I showed you yesterday the Captain Brent's ship, Wanderer, as she appeared in her return, photographed at Tampa, Florida. Okay. Iron Republic, chapter 3. Let me see something. I might break this up in 2 parts, depending. I like to read the whole. I'm gonna tell y'all, and y'all know it. I read the whole book already. Man, it's marvelous. It's a marvelous read. Like running. Whenever you're reading and you're gonna read something, you never really pay attention to how much it is, because if you focus on the run, there might be something that stops and blocks you from the run. So when you're gonna read it all, or you already have it situated how you're gonna break it up. Okay. Now I'm gonna break it up because the first 2 chapters the 3rd chapter is as big as the first 2 chapters. So we're going to do partial. I'm going to use my highlighter this time because I actually made it my business to go back downstairs. I took it downstairs and bring it back up when I mark it because I don't want to put ink in there. Well, you know what I mean. So, chapter 3. The apprehension of Captain Brent proved groundless. The passage was... Excuse me. The passage was open, and though there was considerable floating ice, the current was driving it in the same direction, and we experienced no difficulty in sailing through. Indeed, it was impossible for us to do anything but go through. And for after we had gotten fairly into the strait, the current was like a mighty swift flowing river, and had there been a fair wind to go back, it must have blown half a gale to drive us against such a tide as was sweeping through. I was convinced that this was a permanent strait, and not merely an accident break in the great barriers. The regular smoothness of the sides showed the effects of a continuous current and the abrasions of great masses of ice carried through by it. Now I say I was convinced then, but when on our return we found the passage in every respect practically in the same condition as when we passed through the first, there was positively no room for doubt. Now I will not contend that this strait is always open, but I do maintain that it is a permanent channel through which a strong current flows, and I am certain that there is a backbone of terra firma underneath these barriers of ice, through which this passage cuts, and is as permanent and clearly defined as the Straits of Magellan or Gibraltar. I've been through Gibraltar. I have a theory, but as it must be elucidated in dry deductions of scientific reasoning, I will not inject it into this narrative. It is my intention, though, as soon as possible to prepare a more elaborate work which I am considered or constrained to believe will be a valuable addition to scientific lifetime or literature. It is probable that this passage is sometimes closed by ice packs, or the entrance may be jammed with great masses of drift ice, while beyond, the channel may still be open, with the current always flowing through from the north. It is easy to imagine that a great iceberg happening to be nearby would be drawn in, if it were large enough to fill up the passages. Many of them are. Now, it would be firmly held there until crushed and broken up by the waves, hiding the strait and giving the appearance of a solid ice wall. And then, too, mariners in these wild sea wastes are very cautious and seldom approaching near enough to the barriers to detect this passage even if it were open. What the depth of it is, we had no means of asserting, for though we spliced together all the lead lines aboard the ship, we never succeeded in finding the bottom anywhere. Now that was a way in the maritime old time. I'm talking about miles of rope, y'all, and they would have a weight, and they would just let it go and go and go, and they would count the fathoms. It was marked. These things were, I'm talking about coiled up, miles long, y'all. I'm serious. I mean, you carry what? How many miles of veins in you? Think about it. From capillaries to the main arteries stretched out. How many miles within you? They would have these on the deck with these waiters, and they would, with markings, and they would drop it and find out, okay, this is 13 miles down. Okay, this is 6 miles down. And they would map the bottom of the ocean as perceived what they think, because they cannot see. This is a mile down. This is 6 fathoms. This is 12 fathoms. This is, and that's what they used to do. So he is stating that everything they put together, using everything, they could not find the bottom anywhere. Now, on account of the tremendous current that set through with the ship, the log was valueless. But from close observation, both going and coming, Captain Brent estimates the length of the passage to be about 25 miles. On the farther side of the ice walls and sea presented 25 miles, wow, presented practically the same features as on this, and the shining cliffs running away as far as the eye could see on either hand, while the black ocean heaved with great billows that broke with continuous thunder against the barriers or threw their spray high upon the great solemn icebergs that floated in silent majesty, too immense to be shaken by Neptune in the wildest efforts of his wrath. The sun now, which had been rising but a little way above the horizon for some time past, disappeared entirely soon after we got into the open sea beyond the barriers. But when the air was not filled with sleet or snow, it was never really dark. The aurora australis, too, frequently lighted the sea with its weird, strange glow, so that it was easy for us to keep the frozen coastline in view. My object was now to circumnavigate this polar sea, sailing eastward along the south side of the barriers until we again came in view of Mount Erebus, far off to the northwest. We then headed the ship due south and soon sunk the ice-bound coast and mountain beneath the black horizon of the Antarctic Sea. So they pretty far away from it. My idea then was that we were in an open polar sea, ice locked all around, and we thought to sail directly across until we reached the barriers of the opposite side and thus obtain a knowledge of its extent. Shortly after we crossed the ice barriers, the needle became erratic, deflecting more and more every day until it entirely reversed itself. Now, though I believe that's the compass, the weather was fair, and we detected this by the constellations, or we would undoubtedly have sailed out of our course and turned the ship around in following the compass. For weeks after we passed through Barrington Strait, that is, as I have been egotistical enough to Christian it, and that's what he calls it, we had storms. Snow and ice, and the black ocean through which we plowed was in no wise different from that which extends from the Cape Horn to the Victoria Land, except that we noticed less ice and met with no storms as severe as we encountered on this side, both going and coming. I will not weary the reader with the details of our long voyage in this hitherto unknown ocean. And in the course of time, the sun again appeared as we drew southward. The sea became cleared of ice, and the cold moderated as it does in traveling from the poles to the equator. In vain we looked for the ice barriers, which we supposed surrounded us. Only the black open sea stretched. Got a headache. Only the black open sea stretched on, and we held our course. There were no exciting incidents, and 4 months after passing the barriers, 4 months, wow, we were sailing in open seas out of the region of ice and snow, with the weather constantly growing warmer. 2 months later, we encountered driftwood, and not long afterwards, sea fowls appeared and grew more numerous every day. They first appeared on the starboard side, and as the number increased from day to day, including some that were unmistakably land birds, I expressed the opinion to Captain Brent that we were sailing parallel to some coast and suggested that the ship's course be altered to make this shore. This was done, and evidence of land such as seaweed and driftwood became more apparent every day. Wow. My interest and excitement became so great that I could not be still a moment when awake and could sleep but little. In a fever of restlessness, I walked the deck hour after hour and scanned the horizon for land. Now, in parentheses, states a perfectly useless waste of energy, as a man was stationed in the lookout, who of course would see the land before it became visible from the deck. Crow's nest, right? The weather was fine, and we were evidently nearing land of some kind. Now, as night closed on the 20th of July, an illumination of some kind was plainly visible on the horizon off the starboard bow, and the vessel's head was turned towards it. My excitement was so great that I did not go down to my cabin for supper, and the illumination grew plainer constantly. And at 10 o'clock, the lookout at the masthead said he could distinguish what seemed to be electric lights. At this, my hopes fell. I had been thrilled with the idea of approaching an unknown land in an unknown ocean, and now it seemed that in some way we had gotten back into the beaten track of the world and were approaching a modern city. Captain Brent was of the opinion that it was one of the cities on the west coast of South America, although it was impossible to understand how we could have gotten there, as we had been sailing south by the heavens ever since we left the polar regions. In a short time, it was plainly to be seen from the deck that we were approaching a considerable city, lighted by electricity, mind you. And as we neared the land, the lead was heaved constantly. And after running in as close as he dared, the captain cast anchor and waited for daylight before attempting to enter the harbor. Now, as soon as the ship was made snug and everything became quiet on board, I was struck by the strange silence of the city that lay before us. Although evidently a large city and a modern one, in parentheses it says, if we might judge from the brilliant manner in which it was lighted, and there was an entire absence of that roar and rumble which characterizes the modern American or European city. As a matter of fact, although we lay within a few miles, no sound of any kind came to us, and the silence was strange and weird-like, as though it was some brilliantly illuminated city of the dead. I was wakened next morning by the breaking of the winch and the rattling of the cable as the anchor was hoisted. And dressing hurriedly, I went on deck where the captain and crew were discussing the small craft that was coming out of the harbor. Even as we looked, a most remarkable boat came tearing out and pitching towards us at the rate of at least 50 miles an hour. As it came towards us, we could see only a great billow of foam, and above it a covered deck, something like a ferry boat or excursion barge. When it came alongside of us, we could see that the vessel, in parentheses, if such a thing may be called a vessel, and consisted of a long cigar-shaped hull, submerged after the fashion of the American whaleback, with the superstructure raised on stanchions. On each end of the cylindrical hull were great cone-shaped screws, somewhat larger than the hull itself, and it was these that raised the billows of foam as they leaped through the water, pushing and dragging the strange-looking boat. A uniformed pilot was put aboard, and a towing hawser thrown to the men in the bow. Saluting and speaking perfect English, though with a peculiar accent, the pilot asked what vessel it was. On being informed that it was the Wanderer of New York, United States of America, he dropped his jaw, stretched his eyes, and looked altogether as upset as if he had been told that it was the Flying Dutchman. "What land is this?" asked Captain Brent in turn. "The Iron Republic, sir," replied the pilot, again saluting and advancing to the wheel. In response to our further questioning, he courteously stated that he was an officer on duty, and that it was against the rules for him to hold any conversation except in reference to the ship, and begged us to curb our curiosity until we got ashore, when all the information we desired would be afforded us. There was nothing else for us to do, so Captain Brent turned his attention to lowering and furling the sails which had been hoisted, and by the time everything was made snug, we were alongside the pier. As soon as we were made fast, another officer came on board, and he, like the pilot, seemed to be dumbfounded when he learned that the vessel hailed from the United States of America. After inspecting the ship's papers, he turned to Captain Brent and informed him that the circumstances of our arrival were so unusual and unprecedented in his experience that he would be under the necessity of conducting him to the office of the Director of Navigation. Thereupon, the captain introduced me as owner and the proper person to deal with, and the officer politely requested me to accompany him. "Sir," said I, as we passed through the curious throng that had gathered on the wharf, "will you be kind enough to tell me what country this is and in what part of the world it lies?" "This," he replied, "is the Iron Republic, and the continent on which you stand lies about as far from the frozen ocean as your own continent of America does in the opposite direction." Wow. Just here, having reached the outskirts of the crowd, he made a signal, and a man approached with a horseless vehicle, and dismounting saluted and opened the door of his carriage, forbearing to question further an officer of whose power and authority had not the slightest idea, and whose extreme courtesy forbade impertinence. I took my place in the carriage and was whirled along wide, smooth streets through the heart of the city. I have remarked that though we lay just outside the harbor and in sight of the city for some hours before entering, we heard none of that roar and rumble inseparable from the cities of its apparent size among us. The reason was now plain. In the first place, the streets were all as smooth as a tennis court, and there was nothing to make a noise. There was not a horse to be seen, and it was evident from the floor-like cleanliness of the streets that they were not intended for the use of horses and wagons. On all sides were horseless vehicles of every description, from the lightest bicycles to large covered vans, all rubber-tired, whirling to and from swiftly and without noise. This is getting to be a banger. And those confound them is pretty decent too. Let me make sure that we are like 2 more pages. I just want to make sure I've got it locked in. Yes, I do. Excellent. See, like I said, when I'm reading, I can just go on for days. Anyway, I had only time to note the things referred to and to remark to the strange and picturesque customs of the ladies and gentlemen who were on the streets. When my conductor drew up before a large, substantial stone building covering an entire block, stepping down from the carriage, he assisted me to alight and ushered me into a large and well-lighted reception room in the front of the building. I noticed as we approached that a blue flag with a white star floated from the tower on the roof, and surprised that in some way the 2 officers with whom I had been brought in contact in the building which we had just entered represented the same department of government. Sounds like the UN flag, huh? With the flat earth symbol on it. The perversion that we have. Conducting me to one of the comfortable seats with which the room was supplied, my companion excused himself by saying that the gentleman who met me at the boat would be with me in a few minutes, and withdrew. Scarcely had he passed through the door when the person referred to came in, having presumably ridden up after us in his own carriage. Smiling pleasantly, he expressed the hope that I would not be annoyed by the little convenient nationalities to which I was being subjected. Excuse me, guys, ladies, girls, saying that my arrival was so extraordinary and so out of common. Oh, Red, these body functions, stop. I was being subjugated, saying that my arrival was so extraordinary and so out of common with all other entries made since he had been connected with the Marine, that he had no other recourse but to refer me to the head of the department. I assured him that I was under obligations for his courteous attentions, and that a stranger as I was, and dazed by the extraordinary circumstances in which I found myself, I was in a condition to absolutely require guidance and direction. Man, he didn't know where he was at. He desired me to consider myself under no restraint whatever, and stating that I was being referred to the chief of the Bureau of Navigation because he was at a loss to know how to place me on the Marine Register. Opening a door He conducted me without ceremony into the presence of a gentleman who he introduced as Director of Navigation and Chief of the Department of the Marine. This officer, notwithstanding his evident high position, rose and smiling cordially bowed and asked us both to be seated. In a few words, the subordinate explained to his superior the circumstances of my arrival and asked for instructions in the certain matters pertaining to the registration or registering of my vessel. These were given, and then the high official, with rare feeling and tact, arose and grasped my hand and welcomed me to the Iron Republic, saying that though it might lack the associations which must make my native country pleasant, it possessed advantages and attractions which he believed, from what he had been able to learn, could not be found in America. I thanked him for his cordial greeting and assured him that while some associations of my own country had been pleasant, others were very unpleasant, and upon the whole, I was glad to have found my way to the Iron Republic, wherever and wherever it may or might be. Now, after inquiring into the details of my voyage, in which he manifested great interest, the director remarked that the astonishment of his countrymen at my arrival would naturally be much less than mine, inasmuch as they had a very thorough knowledge of my country. It was known, he said, from the settlement of his country, that the American continent existed. Indeed, that it was the attempt of a shipload of immigrants to get to America that led to the discovery of the continent on which the magnificent structure of government known as the Iron Republic had been reared. This was in 1698. And driven southward by fierce gales, the colonists, after many months of battling the storm and ice, found themselves cast on the inhospitable shores of a new world. For many years after the first settlement was made, it was supposed by the colonists that they were on a portion of the American continent. But with the development of the country, the increase of knowledge, and the researchers of navigators, it was found that they had been discoverers as well as colonizers. They knew all that was known in Europe of the American continent up to the time they were so effectually cut off from the balance of the civilized world. And within the past 50 years, 2 other American ships had drifted to their shores. When I told them how many lives had been lost and how much treasure had been squandered by America and other nations in Arctic explorations, and expressed surprise that a people so advanced in the arts of civilization as his nation appeared to be should make no attempts to establish communication with other parts of the world, but should remain isolated for centuries, he smiled pleasantly and said he could appreciate my feelings. And we're going to stop right there because now we're at halfway mark. We're going to stop right there. I got to. I could keep reading, y'all. I could, but I got to get my meal ready. And we're just going to mark that up right there. A moxie of a mark. Yes, yes. Excuse me because I was yawning and stuff, but I actually got plenty of rest, even though I woke up for 4 hours. I went back to sleep for another 4 hours after my first 4 hours. And I fell asleep at 8:30, you guys. Woke up at 12:30. Was up to about 3:34. Went back to sleep and woke up about 7:55, 8 o'clock. So this is pretty good read, isn't it? So we're right at page 32, okay? So we're about that far in, okay? And this is an excellent read. I appreciate those who took the time to pay attention. I know I'm sitting here looking like that was our first hand salute before this crap here. You know that, right? This was binding a lie. This was open and freedom. I'm just letting y'all know this is how we used to salute. I know people have a hard time with that. Look it up. All right. I don't want to shake and rattle no fake tree of history. All right. I'm always going to share a little tea. But yeah, I went ahead and said, let me go ahead and hook my great grandpa's hairstyle up. Mr. Henry Lucifer Schaus, my great grandfather, who was Dutch and Cherokee. And my great grandmother, Margaret Maggie Klein, who was Dutch and Cherokee. Anywho, I appreciate you guys taking the time to hang out and stay in here. I know it's a work day. It's a Friday. Isn't it Friday, right? The 19th, is it? Friday, May 19th. Isn't that about a business? So I appreciate you guys hanging out, hanging in there with me um, for this read. We'll be back in a couple hours because I want to make something to eat. I'm about to have me a nice little kind of big breakfast, break my fast breakfast, and make a fruit smoothie because I need some fruits in me. And we'll be back. So let me give a shout out to everybody that came in who spoke. Hey, Margaret, what's going on? How you doing, sister? Is this live? Yes. There's no sound yet, or else they are messing with my phone again. It's your phone again, hon. Mikey Hill, what's going on, beloved brother? Hey, Snoo, what's going on, baby girl? Good. Good day, wonderful woman. Rondo, what's going on, beloved brother? Yo, what's happening, brother? Grand elevation. Scott, peace, peace, peace. Y'all already know. Y'all already know. Hey, T, what's going on, Hans? What's going on, brother? Much love and respect to everyone. Yeah, everyone wants tickets to the vaudeville show. I know, right? Freakazoids. My days of pop locking. I ain't popping. Hey, Alfred, what's cracking, bro? What's going on, beloved? Yes, 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 yes. You and of Nas confound them. Right, right. But anyway, I'm gonna go ahead, get down here. I'm making me some grits and about 6 eggs, um, and a small piece of salmon. So it's protein, and spicy, very spicy. So that way I could take. I was gonna. Well, actually, I didn't take no vitamins this morning. I mean, I take my magnesium because you. It takes about a month or two to build magnesium in your stomach or in your system, unless you're gonna eat 7 salads a day of different sorts and stuff. I don't think anybody's gonna sit down and eat 7 salads a day. So it's a plant based. All right, it's plant based magnesium. I have 3 different types. I take the one that doesn't make you poop all over the place. The other ones I like. This one like I'm gonna share this with you. The Tudka, Taurus Doxa, whatever it's called. I forget the actual which called. This magnesium right here is good, but it'll have you run to the bathroom until you get it built up in your system. And I'm telling you, it's just 2 capsules a day. The one I use is 3 capsules a day, but I take it once, at 3 period times of the day to allow my body to acclimate, to build it up, and it doesn't cause the poop syndromes. Now, the other one that'll really have you running is magnesium malate, which is really, it's a bioflavonoid form of magnesium. I like the plant-based stuff, guys. You take 3 capsules per day, morning or night, with or without food. This right here, I've taken twice, and this stuff will have you run to the bathroom. I'll just let you know. But you really need to make sure you check your blood to see what your magnesium. When you check your blood, they can't tell you your magnesium. These doctors don't know crap. They have to go and test and do at the cellular level to know where your vitamin D and they can say, oh yeah, you got vitamin D, blah blah. No, see, that's that surface stuff. That's what they've been trained to do. No, you need to know when you get blood work at the cellular level. What is your magnesium? What is your copper and your zinc? What is your palladium? What is all those different metals in your blood that's supposed to be as far as like normal minerals and stuff? What is too much and what is not enough? That's what you need to make sure. And don't let them bully you with their little smock and stethoscope nonsense. Okay, they've caused more deaths than enough. Anyway, little T, I appreciate you guys coming in. So you already know my beloved sisters, my brothers. It's 2 and 1. We're going to get off of here. Okay. Love you guys.